It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. I know the anxiety that comes with watching a loved one struggle with a non-linear path. This podcast was created to fight back against the narrow picture of success painted by social media. Each week, we share authentic stories from people who changed course, maybe failed, and ultimately found their own definition of success. These are the stories you need to hear to prove that changing your mind is common, and you don't have to have it all figured out at 18. So if you're a parent or you're a young adult looking for a little proof, you're home. Now let's get into today's episode. And if you'd like to explore how I can help your young adult, you can always schedule a free consultation through my website link in the show notes. Today, my guest is Jenna Mathias. Jenna is a Baylor University graduate whose journey into adulthood has been shaped by resilience and recovery. After overcoming addiction and rebuilding her life from the ground up, she's gained a deep appreciation for personal growth and freedom. Today, she works as a business development representative for Grace and Emerge Recovery, where she's passionate about helping women find the same freedom that she's found. Let's not wait any longer. Here's Jenna. All right, Jenna, thanks for carving out some time to be a guest on the podcast.
Of course. I'm honored.
I'm excited to have you. We only recently met, and I'm just kind of tickled to have you as a guest. And because honestly, I don't really know the majority of your story, though I do feel like when we were kind of traveling together, I heard bits and spurts of it. And so I'm just honored that you're carving out some time to sit down and tell me in one fell swoop, kind of the journey leading to what it is you're doing now. So I'll stop front loading this. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners, where did you grow up and what was the messaging that you were hearing about what you were supposed to do after high school?
Well, first, I want to say thank you, Joanna. And I appreciate you asking me to do this because when I met you, I was like, that girl's cool. She's got it all together and she doesn't care what other people think. And she's good. Okay, so where did I grow up and what were the expectations? Okay, so I grew up in Austin. I went to Westlake High School. I grew up with a twin sister and an older brother. And there was a very linear path that was laid out for me. In my high school, kind of everyone did the same thing after college. After high school, everyone went to college and everyone went to a prestigious college, whatever it may be. And, the expectation was finish high school with a 4.0, go to college, get a 4.0, and go work in some sort of business. And for my family, the expectation, and I think the idea was that we would all go work in commercial real estate. It wasn't necessarily told you need to do this, but that's what my dad does. And I'll just give you a little insight. That's what my twin sister and older brother do right now. That is not what I do.
Shocker.
I know, shocker,
there
right?
might be a twist to this story. Okay.
Just a small little twist. I'm not your typical Westlake girl that goes to work in commercial real estate, but I did try. I tried. And I told all the treatment centers that I went to, when I get out of here, I'm going to go get my real estate license. When I get out of here, I'm going to go work in commercial real estate. And I really, really tried to do that. But someone once told me, try to stand up, and if you wanted to do it, you just stand up. So that was kind of my high school and the expectation after. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I'm just taking it all in as you're talking about it. I'm there are so many ways that I could follow at this moment in asking kind of follow-up questions, but I wanted to give you a little bit of space. Here's what I'm thinking. I want you to kind of fill us in, right? You painted the picture of what you were supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And you also alluded to every time you were in treatment, which, okay, surprise, Jenna had some treatment experience, which we'll get into here in a second. You were still focused on this end goal, right? This end career, which was going to loop you back to where you were quote unquote supposed to be with the family, finding your place, your siblings. But clearly that did not pan out. And that's actually quite okay. So why don't you actually talk us through the iteration of the winding journey, right? Like you said, graduate high school with a 4.0, go to college, commercial real estate, come back, work for the family biz. At what point after high school did your journey start to lead you in a different direction?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I mean, the definition of success was be successful in commercial real estate. Like, that's all I thought there was. And so the journey from high school, so I did not get a 4.0, shocker there. I did okay because I think the substances were just like kind of there. And the thing I know now is like I wasn't drinking all the time, but I was always thinking about drinking. And I think now the recognition, like, that's alcoholism. But I went to college. I went to Baylor. I did the thing, right? I did the thing that I thought I was supposed to do. And I really enjoyed my freshman and sophomore year. I got in with the cool kids. I was, in a sorority. I was in business school. Like, I thought I had it all made. And, for the first time I had freedom, like no parents telling me what to do. And yeah, I drank a lot. And then junior and senior year, I drank a lot. And a lot of other people had a lot of ideas about my drinking, and I didn't really care. Like, people were telling me, I think you drink differently than us. Like, I think you drink to like cover something up or cover emotions up, or you stay out way later than us and you're ending up in places you probably shouldn't end up. And I kept hearing that message like over and over again, but I really didn't care, right? I just wanted them to stop. And so I continued to do what I wanted to do, because that's what we do. We just do what we want to do. And I did graduate. And by the grace of God, I graduated on time, and I went and I worked for a family in Colorado, and I was their production assistant and personal assistant. It was a fun little job. But what happened for me there was the switch flipped, right? I was alone for the first time. I was like away from family, away from friends. I was isolated in a small little town. I was working nonstop. And the only thing I knew to run to was like drinking, right? That worked for me. I was lonely, so I drank. I was happy, so I drank, all of this stuff. And I came home for a bachelorette party for one of my best friends. And I was so miserable. Like, I felt like I couldn't go on, and I really didn't want to. And the big book talks about like, can't live with it, can't live without it, right? Like, I was drinking and I was miserable. When I would stop, I was miserable. So I like really was at this place, like the jumping off place of like, I don't know what to do. And so I tried to take my own life, and it didn't work. And thank God it didn't work, because here I am today. But I was in treatment within 24, 48 hours. I think my dad did a Google search, my sister did a Google search, and found a local treatment center, and I went there. And really, like, I thought it was for depression and like maybe a little bit of drinking, like I was drinking too much. But like I said earlier, like, that's when it took a turn. And like, this treatment center is where it took an even darker turn. Mm-hmm. Not at the treatment center. The treatment center wasn't the problem, right? But I met people, and I was interested in doing other things other than just drinking. And so I met someone who, his thing was heroin and meth, fentanyl and meth, because you can't get heroin anymore. So you can only get fentanyl. And he was like 20 years older. And, we had left treatment at this point, and he was just my friend, and I was interested in what he was doing. There was a long period of time when I blamed him for like giving me this fentanyl, but like, I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew exactly what he had, and I wanted it. Right. And so I manipulated him, and, he's like, you don't get hungover if you do this. I'm like, right, well, I'll do it. And so from that moment on, so from 2021 to 2023, I was in treatment. I mean, in and out. So I would go to treatment for a month. I'd get out. And the day I got out, I'd usually use. Sometimes it would be 2 weeks if I was in a sober living, or, I mean, it really didn't matter what the situation was. The problem was inside of me, and the fentanyl, the alcohol, the drugs, like all of that was to solve my problem. And when that was taken away, I was left with Jenna, unsuccessful Jenna in my mind, right? I was left with, all of the restless, irritable, and discontent inside of me that I did not know how to manage, like 0%. And I loved people to do things for me. Like, I did not know how to function in life without substances. And now I know, like, that's indicative also of alcoholism and drug addiction. But essentially, I would just like go to treatment and get out. And like, this was like a nonstop cycle, and it was a really exhausting cycle until I went to this last I went to my second to last place, and I was there it's a 3-month program, and I was there for 6. So if that tells you anything. And then they wouldn't discharge me to their aftercare program because they thought I needed more care, which is absolutely true. And the most ethical thing they probably could have done, you know? And so I moved to California because I knew that guy from that first treatment center, he was there. But I found a sober living there, you know, and I went and I lived there. And it was every single day getting high, doing absolutely nothing but like seeing him and like getting high. That's all I did every day, all day. There was no social interaction. There was no I was living in San Diego, but there was no like going to the beach and like having fun. Like all I did was drugs. And this went on for a couple months, and I don't like to stop because I liked getting high. And I thought I got caught. Turns out I might not have gotten caught, but it doesn't really matter. I turned myself in. I was like, oh, I've been getting high for one day. And my family's like, oh, okay, like, we'll help you. But anyway, went to detox. And then there was like a series of detoxes after that, because at that moment, I was told, you're going to long-term treatment. And I was like, heck no, I'm not. Like, that is the last thing I want to do. Like, I really did not, I didn't have any interest in it. I didn't have any interest in being sober. I didn't have any interest in stopping. I just wanted the consequences to stop. I wanted to continue using the substances without any consequences because I liked the substances, right? They worked for me. But I did not like the physical consequences, like the emotional consequences. I didn't like, you know, my family not trusting me. So if those would have stopped and I could keep using substances, I probably would have, you know. But that's not reality, right? I was told that you can't just, you know, have your cake and eat it too. Yeah.
At some point, the consequences are hard to, you can't avoid them.
Yeah, totally. And like, you know, I got sober at 25, and that I'm grateful for like the drugs that I did because it brought me to my knees real quick. Right. Like if it was alcohol, I don't think I would have it would have gotten as bad, and like I would have gotten it so early had it not been life-threatening, because it was like I had been in the hospital multiple times with an overdose, like no pulse, right? But what's funny about that is like that stuff didn't matter to me. Like it didn't matter that I had no pulse in a hospital, because maybe it did for a little bit, right? It scared me enough. It scared me enough to get me back into treatment. But about 2 weeks into treatment, I'm like, I can't remember like how bad it was. And so I leave and I do the same thing over and over. And so like my family, I think, was feeling really hopeless, and like, you know, they're like, she almost died. Like, why isn't she stopping? And so like the last measure was like, we're going to send her to long-term treatment. And I'm like, I'm not going. So they're going to keep putting me in detoxes. I'm going to keep running away. Like that's sobriety was scary.
Yeah.
It was really, really scary. I had never done it. Like I had said, like 1 to 2 weeks, maybe on a good run. But there was something different this time. And it wasn't that I like understood or had like a horrible bottom. Because what I was told is like, the bottom is where you stop digging, right? And I always, like my pitch to treatment centers was, it's got to get worse. It's got to get worse. There's all these people that it's worse. It's worse. It's worse than me. And someone was like, well, the bottom's where you stop digging, you know, just stop digging. And it was true. Like, I mean, it got bad enough, I guess. But I went to this treatment center, and it's a very like confrontational treatment center, behavioral modification, like the last place I wanted to be. But what happened there is like my life absolutely changed as a result. And it wasn't because I wanted to be sober. It wasn't because I needed to be sober. It was because I did the things that they asked me to do. Not on the first try, not perfectly, but I did the things, right? I listened for the first time. And it was honestly at a point where like my hands were tied. Like my family was like, we'll never talk to you again. All of your friends will never talk to you again. Like there will be no money ever again. And I didn't believe them, because like all the other treatment centers, they said that too, but they didn't stick to it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I tested them. I left 2 months in, no phone, no money, nothing. And I was like, I'm going to go be homeless on the streets of Dallas. Like I really believed that would be a okay plan for me. And I'm going to get high, and like, that'll be my life. And I believed that would be okay. So I wandered into treatment. into detox this last time with literally the clothes on my back, because I only lasted 24 hours homeless. I'm not fit for homelessness. If you can't tell. At all. So I walked in with literally the clothes on my back, like not an ID. They're like, do you have your ID? I'm like, no. Do you have your phone? No. Like, you can't take anything from me because I don't have anything, right? And my family held the line. No one would take my call. So I ended up back in that same treatment center. And I did 15 months inpatient, and it was super hard. But what happened there is I experienced freedom for the first time in my life through, I think, working the steps of an anonymous program was a big part of it. But I think the recognition of the world doesn't revolve around me and I can help others. Because there was a moment when you get there, all the other clients are like trying to help you out. They're like teaching you about the book or teaching you about whatever. And then there comes a time when it's your turn to teach the new clients there about whatever it is, about the book or the steps. And so I wasn't that far in, maybe a couple months, but I was like teaching someone else about this book or about the steps or whatever, sobriety, freedom. It doesn't matter what it was. It really didn't matter at all what it was. The content didn't matter. But what mattered was that I wasn't thinking about myself for however long, and I experienced freedom. I experienced freedom from the obsession to drink and use. And then I was like, I'm addicted to this feeling.
Well, it also like going back to your comment earlier too, where you're like, I was so afraid of sobriety. It almost, well, obviously 15 months inpatient, you are sober, right? It is for sobriety. But I think what I'm also hearing you say too, as a 25-year-old young adult at that moment, you're like, look, if I stop identifying this big shiny object that also is terrifying me, but I'm like able to focus on the things on the periphery that are still getting me to that shiny object, then it makes that shiny object a little less shiny, a little less terrifying. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm 15 months in, I am sober. It's not daunting. And instead you've like done this like backdoor way of conquering the fear that was holding you back. And I also want to just say this because I feel like this is going to segue to kind of the next part of our conversation. You started this interview by saying success meant working in commercial real estate, right? And so like very clearly you are not in this path. And so we're going to have a roundabout discussion about like what success looks like differently for you. But I imagine that success in sobriety also opened your mind to other possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say too, like I was physically sober from substances, but I was in recovery for the first time, right? I was like practicing spiritual principles and like actively trying to help other people and be a good person and like do all of these things to grow closer to this power, this higher power, right? And like that's the whole goal of recovery, is like growing closer to that power. And like you said, or like I said, like success was being successful in commercial real estate. Success for me today is living in freedom, growing closer to that higher power and helping other people. That's all it is. Trust God and help people, right? Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Of like the freedom I have experienced is success, like hands down. And like, I want everyone to experience the freedom I've experienced. It's like, that's why I do what I do, which I guess can segue into like what I do now. Well, actually, after I got out of this rehab, I got to talk about that job real quick.
Go for it.
They make you get a sober job, get well job, whatever you want to call it, where you're, I was making $16 an hour. I was pushing beds at a hospital. I was riding the city bus to and from work. I would like get on the bus in the morning, ride the bus to work, go push patients at a hospital all day long. I'd get on a bus. I'd go to a homeless shelter. I'd go to a meeting, and then I'd get on the bus and then I'd go home. And there was so much freedom in that. I was the happiest I have ever been in my life to this day when I was doing that. When I was being of service to other people at work, and I was being of service after work, and I was like sacrificing my time to do this, right? So I did that for a whole year, and it was amazing. It was freaking awesome. And I miss it. I wish I could go back to it sometimes because I don't ever have to think about work if it's pushing beds, you know?
Well, yeah, shameless plug. This is like a perfect opportunity. So what are you doing now?
Yes.
Like tell us the work that you're doing. And I also think that kind of segues into like, tell us a little bit about the company that you work for, because this is an opportunity to not just highlight your particular role and what, you know, do you see yourself as successful in this time, but also just kind of like doing a shout out for the company that you work for. So anybody listening that is curious or needs some help could kind of connect.
Yeah. So I actually went to the program I work for now. It's called Grace and Emerge Recovery. It is a long-term women's facility in Austin. It is a step-down program, full continuum of care. And these two women, Leah and Laurel, like came up with this idea, and it has turned into a place where a lot of women get well and a lot of women find success. And so what I do there, well, actually, I'll talk about how I got the job. I basically begged for this job. I'm not qualified for this job whatsoever. There's no reason I should have this job. I do national business development for them with absolutely no experience. And they took a risk hiring me, and it has been the biggest blessing to me because, like what I talked about earlier, like all I want to do is help women experience what was given to me, right? Like it was a gift given to me, and I like hope that I can help other women, you know, experience that freedom. And so, yeah, we're a 21 bed facility in Austin, complex trauma, substance abuse. We see it all. We skew younger in our age. So I'm like the Grace and Emerge client, right? I'm 27, substance abuse and mental health stuff. Like we see it all. And we really, like, I think the special thing about Grace and Emerge is we really equip women for life, right? It's not like a container where they're in treatment and then they get out and they're like, what the heck? Like it is a step down program designed very intentionally to equip women with life skills and with communication skills and with behavioral skills. I mean, all of this stuff, like to participate in life successfully, right? And success doesn't necessarily mean a 6-figure job, as you know, Joanna. It means, am I contributing to life, to my family's life, to financially? Like, am I just contributing and like, am I happy? And I think we do a good job of that. I think we do a dang good job of that, you know? And like, I wouldn't work for a place that didn't help people like we do. So yeah, it's been like the coolest opportunity to get to like be in the rooms that I get to be in as a result of working at Grace and Emerge. It's pretty cool.
Well, I'm sure that Leah and Laurel are glad that they gave you the opportunity, right? That took the leap. Like you said, no, I mean, vice versa, right? You're saying like, I'm grateful and I'm like not qualified for this position. And just like, I'm leading the charge. And I think their perspective is probably like, there's nobody better that we would have loved to bring in and train and put you in that position, because if your mission is to help others, then it doesn't matter what your previous employment experience is. Quite honestly, like you're on fire. And I think that that's what they can see. And that, I mean, obviously you kind of already answered this, but I still feel like I have to ask it because I always ask it point blank. Do you see yourself as successful?
Absolutely 100%. And not because of my job at all. I have the dream job. This is literally my dream job. Yeah. But it has nothing to do with my success. Nothing. It's just a small part of it, you know? I get to be a participant in helping other women, but it's the freedom that I live in. Yeah.
I'm going to ask one kind of like wrap up off script question though. And so before I even do that, I'm just going to say like, first of all, Jenna, thank you again for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. Like your story is really impactful and I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing it. I also will highlight that we will have contact information, website, email, like phone number, all that. Reach out to Jenna. Also learn about Grace and Emerge. That will be in the show notes for anybody that's interested. And so the thing that I'm trying to get at is, and this is like maybe anecdotal too for my caseload, women are always harder to get to treatment, especially young adult women. It's just like either parents don't act fast enough, where it's like, oh, you're still functioning in some capacity. So like, we're going to let you continue to like hit your rock bottom, kind of like you said, like, no, just stop digging, because you are a highly capable person that will continue to dig for an undetermined amount of time. If there is any advice that you could give to a parent right now of a young adult woman, what piece of advice would you give? And maybe it's echoing a lot of what you've already said for your own story, or maybe it's something that you feel like, hey, we haven't talked about this one thing, and I feel like it's important to part. I'm obviously kind of throwing this out, right? This was, like I said, off script. So whatever her answer is, I just appreciate her taking the time to answer it. Yeah, exactly. What would you give, Jenna? What do you think?
Well, I'm not a parent, so I don't really know what advice to give, but I can tell you what my parents did that absolutely saved my life. They listened to the professionals for the first time ever. I mean, they were always enabling me in some sort, but they didn't know that they were enabling me. They had no idea. That was not their intention. Their intention was to love me, to care about me, to take me to UT football games, because that would solve the problem, right? Because Jenna would be happy. But what saved my life was them listening to the professionals. And when the professionals said, no, do not answer her calls, do not do the things that she wants you to do not give her the money, I actually got well, And I love my dad. And like, he told me that was the hardest thing he's ever had to do. The hardest thing he ever had to do was send me to treatment and say no. And I didn't really get it then. But now through the amends process, when he's talked about it, I really believe that it was one of the hardest things he's ever had to do, because he was letting go, right? I'm powerless over alcohol, but at the moment he's sending me to treatment, like, he's powerless, right? Like, his daughter, his young daughter, like, that's it, right? Like, he's trusting the professionals and he's trusting God that, like, the experience that I was going to have was, like, going to be the one. And so that's what my family did for me. And I truly believe it was the greatest gift I could have ever been given, was them saying, no, we're not answering your calls, So I don't know if that's encouraging.
Well, I think it is, right? Like, any parent that's listening to this, whether you are the one who's in the thick of it with your young adult, or whether you have a family member who's in the thick of it, or whether you have a friend that's in the thick of it, I think at the end of the day, like, hearing that and also validating that is going to be the hardest decision, and yet by saying no ends up changing the trajectory of your loved one's life. And let's just be real. I think going back to your comment, Jenna, where you're like, look at me. I was not, like, homelessness was not going to suit me, right?
Yeah.
So I think the added component to this too is, like, if your loved one comes from a family where, like, they have always been taken care of, the reality of them being able to navigate, like, being completely cut off financially, it will not last.
Yep.
So we'll end on that note. Jenna, thank you again for carving out time to being a guest on the podcast. And for anybody that's listening, make sure the answer is no. And also reach out to Grace and Emerge.
Yes. Thank you, Joanna. I really appreciate it. This has been so fun.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email joanna@lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.